We've all been there, right? You hit the power button on your PC, ready to go, and you get nothing. Maybe it's a random crash or that dreaded blue screen of death. It is so frustrating. It feels like you're lost in a digital maze. But what if I told you there's a system, a way of thinking, that can help you figure out pretty much any PC hardware problem? Let's dive in and learn how to think like a real investigator.
First thing we got to get our heads around is that a modern PC isn't just a box of parts. It's a really complex, interconnected ecosystem. And this quote, it just nails it. One tiny failure, one little thing, can set off a catastrophic chain reaction that takes down the whole system. So you can't just start guessing. You've got to be methodical.
So let's totally reframe how we look at this. Troubleshooting your PC isn't about running down some simple checklist. No, it's an investigation. You're not just a user anymore. You're a detective. You're like a doctor performing triage on a patient, trying to find the root cause of the sickness.
Yeah, think of your PC like a team of super high-performance specialists. You've got your CPU, your GPU, that blazing fast DDR5 RAM. They're all experts at their job. But here's the catch. They depend on each other so much that a problem with one part can show symptoms somewhere else entirely. You see, a faulty power supply might look like your graphics card is crashing. A weird memory error could end up corrupting your whole operating system. Okay, before you jump online and start panic buying a new graphics card, assuming yours is dead, hold on. Every good investigation starts by checking the most obvious clues. And you would be absolutely amazed at how often the problem is something incredibly, almost embarrassingly simple. Let's just walk through the golden rules, the first 3 checks. Number 1, power. Is the thing even getting juice? Check the wall socket, plug a lamp into it or something. Make sure your power strip is actually on. And the all-time classic, check that little I/O switch on the back of the power supply. We've all done it. Number 2, make sure the cables are secure. I mean, inside and out. Unplug and plug back in the main power cables to your motherboard and graphics card. Seriously, vibrations can work them loose. And finally, number 3, unplug everything that's not essential. Keyboards, mice, USB hubs. A faulty USB device can, believe it or not, stop a PC from booting at all. And look, it is amazing how a disaster of a symptom can have such a tiny cause. Your PC is completely dead? Could just be that power strip switch is off. You got no picture on your screen? Maybe your monitor cable just got bumped loose. The system keeps crashing the second it starts up? Could be that old USB hub you've had plugged in for years. You have got to check the simple physical stuff first, always.
Okay, so you've checked all the basics. And the problem's still there. Don't panic. Your next best friend, your best source of info, is the patient itself. Your motherboard has its own little built-in diagnostic system, kind of like its vital signs, and it's giving you clues.
On a lot of modern motherboards, you'll see these 4 little lights. They're often called Q leads or easy debug LEDs, and let me tell you, they are a PC builder's absolute best friend. When you turn your computer on, it does a quick self-test. If it gets stuck, one of these lights just stays on, telling you exactly where the problem is. A red light, check your CPU. Amber, that's your RAM. A white light points to the graphics card, and green means it can't find your boot drive. This just instantly narrows down your investigation. It's fantastic. But what if your motherboard is a little older or just doesn't have those handy little lights? Well, then you have to listen. Before we had all these visual cues, PCs talk to us through sound. Yeah, they're called beep codes, and they're basically Morse code for hardware errors. The specific pattern of beeps tells you exactly what's wrong. For instance, a super common one long beep, then 2 short ones, that usually points to an issue with your graphics card. Now, here's the crucial part. The codes are different for each manufacturer. So your motherboard manual, that is your secret decoder ring. Don't throw it out. Okay, so at this point in our investigation, we hit a really critical fork in the road. We've checked all the physical stuff. We've listened for clues. Now we have to figure this out. Is the problem with the actual physical hardware? Or is it the software, the code, and the firmware that tells the hardware what to do? And here's a dose of reality that honestly surprises most people. We always blame the hardware, right? Our first instinct when we see a crash or a blue screen is, oh no, my RAM is dead, or my GPU just fried itself. But the data shows that about 3/4, 75% of system stability problems come from software. Drivers, firmware, the OS. In most cases, the hardware is totally fine. A perfect example of this was the recent launch of NVIDIA's RTX 50 series. You had people with brand new, super expensive hardware getting constant black screens and system crashes. For weeks, everybody thought their new cards were defective.
that they were lemons. But the bad guy wasn't the hardware at all. It was one specific graphics driver that was causing all this chaos. It was a software problem that looked exactly like a hardware failure. So, what's the move when you think you have one of these stubborn software problems? A clean driver installation. And I'm not just talking about clicking install on the new driver. There's a free tool called Display Driver Uninstaller, or DDU, that completely nukes every single trace of your old graphics drivers. This is so important because it prevents conflicts between old and new files, which is a super common cause of crashes and weird performance bugs.
All right, let's say we've ruled out the simple stuff, the loose cables, the software bugs. Now it's time to zero in on the hardware itself. And when it comes to failures that take down the whole system, there are three usual suspects that cause the most trouble: power, heat, and storage. To get a feel for our first suspect, power, just look at this number, 575 watts. That is the power that a single high-end graphics card, the RTX 5090, can pull from the wall. Today's PCs are incredibly thirsty for power, and the one part responsible for feeding this beast is the power supply unit, the PSU. An underpowered or failing PSU is a classic cause for random shutdowns, reboots, and just general instability. The stress on these components is so extreme that we've actually seen recurring reports of the main power connector on high-end graphics cards literally melting. So if your system's acting all erratic, especially when you're gaming or doing something intensive, the PSU should be your prime suspect.
Our next suspect is heat. Overheating really is a silent killer. It slowly cooks your components, degrading performance over time and eventually causing damage. And the symptoms can be sneaky. Maybe your games just feel a little sluggish all of a sudden, or your fans are screaming all the time. This is almost always caused by simple things, like dust bunnies clogging up your heat sinks, or thermal paste that's old and dried out. Just doing a regular cleaning is one of the best preventative things you can do.
And finally, let's talk storage. You know, with the old-school hard drives, you usually got a warning, that infamous click-clack-click of death. But with modern solid-state drives, SSDs, failure is usually completely silent and very sudden. They don't have any moving parts to make noise. They just fail when their memory cells wear out or the little controller chip on board dies. And that makes proactively checking their health with a tool like Crystal Disk Info more important than it has ever been. So, we've gone through the entire investigation, from the basic checks all the way to the usual hardware suspects. But you know what? The ultimate fix isn't a repair. It's prevention. Making smart choices when you build or upgrade your machine can stop most of these headaches from ever even happening. Take a look at this budget for a balanced build. Of course, the GPU and CPU get the biggest slices of the pie, but look closely. The power supply and the cooling get a significant chunk, 15%. This is critical. One of the biggest mistakes people make is dropping all their cash on a flashy processor and graphics card and then cheaping out on the foundational parts that actually keep them running safely.
It is so easy to get caught up in the marketing hype. But do you really need that $500 motherboard? Do you really need RAM that runs at a blistering 8,000 megatransfers per second? For most of us, the answer is a hard no. The real-world performance gain is tiny. That money is so much better spent on a high-quality 850-watt power supply from a good brand that will give you stable, clean power for years and years.
And this all brings us to a final, pretty big question. The push for performance is just relentless. Components get faster, way more complex, and more power-hungry every single year. And while that's exciting for us PC enthusiasts, it forces us to stop and think about the trade-offs. In our hunt for a few more frames per second, are we sacrificing long-term stability and reliability? It's definitely something to think about.